David Brewster here with a new episode of Chordplay, and this is I Want My MTV Chords, and this episode is going to revolve around music that was featured on MTV in the 1980s and also in the 1990s as well. And definitely in today's world, MTV is sorely missed, and I know when I was a kid, kind of growing up watching it with my sister, it was inspiring. You know, it also helped you discover new bands and new music, and we used to stay up late watching Headbangers Ball and just endless videos. And I also remember, like, after I started playing guitar, I used to tune in to MTV with my guitar, like sitting on the couch, and I would let the videos play, and I would attempt to play along and like figure out the song as, you know, each video unfolded. And that was actually really good ear training. I used to do that with the radio too, but I totally remember, you know, sitting there in front of MTV and attempting to play just the random assortment of music that they featured, which that was a big challenge, but also a big boost to my ear too. So MTV debuted August 1st of 1981, and it's relatively well known that the first video they played was Video Killed the Radio Star by the band The Buggles. But I always wondered, like, what did they play on that first day? Because, you know, in 1981, music videos existed, but they weren't very common. But here's an image with the first 10 music videos that MTV played on that day. And one of these songs we're actually going to hit in this lesson. So the music and chord-based examples in this episode came from 6 classic albums, and 5 of those albums were from the 1980s, and there's one from the early 90s as well. And a good assortment of music. And I really like putting episodes like this together because we can look at some lesser known, you know, songs and bands and one-hit wonders and stuff like that, and really get into some different areas of music. So anyway, here we go. With the opening, that's the timeless Money for Nothing from Dire Straits, and the song literally says, I Want My MTV, of course sung by Sting, but that famous intro is like this. Something like that. So the hardest thing about this guitar part is the tone. The tone is very elusive. It's really hard to nail, you know, Mark's tone for the song. And even Mark has said in interviews that it's really hard and elusive to just nail, you know, his own tone. But basically this is in the key of G, and it's played fingerstyle with partial and implied chords. Also, he's using a wah as a tone filter. So I'm using the exotic, you know, wah as I kind of flashed that image at the beginning, but it's set about halfway. So what I would recommend you do is set up a little bit of overdrive, you know, hook up your wah, and then just sweep the pedal until you kind of find that honking kind of sweet spot like that. Because it almost sounds like you've got your fingers in your ears, or this kind of honking nasally sound. And I usually match it off that chord right there. That's usually when I'm trying to set my wah to match Dire Straits, because it has a really distinct honk right there. But you're basically grabbing this G partial chord, like a G5, and then you're kind of hammering on from that E to F right there while holding that D, like that. And then, so that's all, you know, implied partial chords right there. You kind of did that like a B flat, slid to C, and then you're kind of sliding it back to the open D, and then you hear a harmonic right there, and it's very pronounced, and there you're reaching up and grabbing that G. Like I said, it's not really that hard to play. I mean, the fingerstyle playing might be a little weird at first. It's the tone that makes Money for Nothing really hard, because you got to nail that. and just that really signature kind of sound that's elusive. But once you kind of get your wah set, in an approximate place, and then you start playing with that, you should find it coming together pretty quick. The second example in this episode is the second video that MTV broadcast on August 1st, 1981. That's Pat Benatar's You Better Run, and like this. So you're doing this real sneaky slide shift from D to E5 right there, and then go back to D, and then back to E, and then up to G right there. So you got this weird kind of muted, quiet. It's like the intro and verse, and then you hear this kind of pedal on this E5 like this. You're just kind of arpeggiating that chord, but you're doing the root and then the other two strings kind of in reverse like that. Then you hear an F sharp power chord right there, and then bend this E up a whole step and back, and then an A power chord right there, and then grab this B and bend that up a whole step and back, and then to F sharp, to A, and then you want to start doing that arpeggio figure on this B power chord right there, and then eventually you hear this kind of interlude. And there you're just kind of exaggerating that intro or verse, riff. Next up's The Timeless, Your Love from the Outfield, a great band, a great song, and their album Play Deep was excellent. I don't care what anybody says. Your Love's like this. Something like that. So it starts with this power chord riff. You got, E5 to C sharp 5 to B5 played like this. You're just kind of chugging along there. That's like the intro and verse. And then eventually you hear this, like the pre-chorus A sus2 right there. Right there you're playing a C sharp 5 with the open B and open high E, and that's a C sharp minor 7 right there played like that. You want to pick through that chord too right there. And then move back basically a whole step and play the open B and high E, open right there with that B5 held down, and that's a B11 implied. And then go back to that C sharp minor 7 and pick through that. And back to that A sus2 and pick through that. And then back to that B11 and pick through that 2 more times. And then you're right back in the verse again right there. Next up's the classic Need You Tonight from the band INXS, another classic 80s song and classic 80s band too. INXS was great, real funky tune like this. we're basically just bashing the C bar chord right there, C major. And then I've seen this written like this. Just like two notes, like a dyad right there, a double stop. But I usually end up playing this almost like a F9, but it doesn't go to F9 right there, but barring right there. Choose your own adventure there. You can do the double stop or two-note version, or the three-note version like that, which I kind of prefer that. It sounds a little fuller, like that. Do it again. You definitely hear this kind of single-note funky riff, you know, during the verses. Reminds me of a lot of things you'll hear from, you know, artists like Michael Jackson and a lot of funk groups from the 70s. But this palm muted, right, just single notes right there. Just playing with that C, that D, and that E flat right there, and then go right back into the chord riff after that. Next up's It Ain't Over Till It's Over from Lenny Kravitz from the album Mama Said. And definitely, I'm a huge Lenny Kravitz fan. Those first three Kravitz albums, Let Love Rule, Mama Said, Are You Gonna Go My Way? They're brilliant, great music. And this is that kind of funky retro riff like this. So it's D major, like that, D flat major, rather, but it's like the top part. And I suspect that they're actually just playing the top three strings of each chord. That very well might be what they're doing, like that. But once again, I kind of like filling out the chord a little bit more, because there's something really interesting happening right there. So D flat major right there, and then it is to D flat major 7, like that. Just changed one note there. You know, that D flat is moving to C right there. That's implied D flat major 7. Then lower that C down to a B, and that's basically like an A flat minor 6 right there. So you're just kind of moving down, you know, it's like a chromatic movement on the G string, like that, to this, to this. And then you're moving down to that, and that's like a what, F sharp 6 implied to F sharp minor, like that. So you're just kind of moving through with that funky rhythm. Progressions like that, where it's kind of sneaky and there's really just one note changing like that, but you hear that progression kind of unfold with that kind of innocent, you know, movement like that. Really interesting. Last but not least is Robert Plant's Ship of Fools from the album Now and Zen, and I love the song. I especially love the guitar part. The guitar work, you know, on Now and Zen, the album, actually is brilliant, but this song is exceptionally brilliant, and it's something like this. Mainly that intro part's what I really wanted to hit right here. So it's like E minor right there, and you definitely hear that low E drone. And then right there it's like a little part of D major against that E, that F sharp and that A note right there. And then you're coming down like D major right here, but you're also grabbing that G and that B note right there. But think of D major, but once again that's against E. And then this. part melodic figure, part implied chords, and it's really interesting. In the verse, like E minor to G to C to B minor, E minor, G, A minor to D major. You know, really interesting song. And after all that runs its course, the very last chord in the song is one of my favorite chords of all time. The very last chord of Ship of Fools is this. Yummy, yummy chord right there. And it's an E minor 11, like that. So we have to wait to the very end of the song and you finally hear that chord strummed. You know, really tasty chord for sure. And it's also a handful right there. You kind of see we're using all of your fret hand fingers to create that dreamy atmospheric sound. Such a cool chord. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with I Want My MTV Chords. And like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I really miss MTV. I think it's sorely missed in today's world. And there are different versions of what MTV did, but it's not the same. Obviously, it's not like it was back in the day. There's just something magical and glowing about 80s MTV, also the 90s too. But it's one of those things I didn't really realize how much I liked it and watched it until it was gone. And then all the music videos and Headbangers Ball and all that stuff were gone. And then suddenly all this crappy reality TV showed up, and Road Rules and Teen Mom and all that stuff. And it's like, okay, so you're no longer playing music, now you're just playing trash. But definitely, back in the day, MTV was excellent, and I sorely miss it. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to my lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.